Welcome back, folks. We are going to turn our attention now to Las Vegas, where sentencing is just getting underway for a former porn star facing 51 years to life in prison for the death of her ex-boyfriend. Now, back in November, the jury found Devyn Michaels guilty of bludgeoning and decapitating the father of her two daughters, Johnathan Willette, the night before he was supposed to move back in with her. Prosecutors said that Michaels was unhappy with how quickly the move was happening and was afraid that it would disrupt the life that she had with her new husband, Devyn Willette, who also happened to be Johnathan Willette's son. Now, before we get you into court, here's a quick recap of the case against Devyn Michaels.
On August 7th of 2023, the defendant, Devyn Michaels, brutally murdered and savaged the body of her ex, Johnathan Willette. But the story did not begin on August 7th of 2023, and all I can say is buckle up because you're in for a wild ride.
It was missing head, let's lock it down.
You left it there, hit it in the head, it's unconscious, not moving. No, this is because it's empty down after you cut his head off.
He cut his head off.
Explain how this happened.
I don't know. I can't cut a person's head off. I know he was pissing me off, so I hit him, but it wasn't anything where he was dead, he was breathing, he definitely had his head on him. You guys are trying to say I did all this stuff. I did not.
You don't remember, is what you're saying. You don't remember doing any of this.
This is Johnathan in life. It's Jonathan's two young children that he shared with the defendant. There was a custody agreement that was ordered by the family court in which the victim had full physical custody of the girls.
You guys have been off and on since when?
No, we're not off and on. We're just trying to make a family work. Like, we're not physically intimate or anything like that. We're just trying to, because the girls really want us with one house, yeah.
You have a boyfriend or anything right now?
Yeah, I'm married.
You're married?
Yes, sir. I'm married to that, yeah.
This son?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
What was your relationship to Johnathan Willette?
I was his son.
While you were intimate with Nikki initially, was she still dating your dad? Or in a relationship with your dad?
Yes, sir.
About how old were you at that time?
19.
19 years old?
Yes, sir.
Did Nikki lose custody of the children?
Yes, sir.
Was this before or after you married, if you remember?
After.
The truth is, the walls were closing in on Devyn Michaels and the fantasy that she had put together. And what was her response when her children were taken away? Johnathan had custody, and this was in danger. She did the unfathomable. She murdered Johnathan Willette.
When we talk about motive, what drives a person to murder, is it not passion of a young man? His first love? His first love that's coming to an end when dad's coming in and moving him, the dad that he said was never there for him. Fathers are sometimes killed by their sons.
We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant, Devyn Jade Michaels, as follows. Count 1, murder with use of a deadly weapon. Guilty of first-degree murder with use of a deadly weapon.
All right, folks, we're continuing to monitor what's going on in Texas, of course. We'll take you back there as soon as this gets done. But right now, I want to get you into court for the start of Michael's sentencing hearing.
Let's go on the record and see. 377-239, State of Nevada versus Devyn Michaels. May the record reflect that Ms. Michaels is present in custody. Mr. Draskovich and Mr. Horvath are here on her behalf. Mr. Giordani and Ms. Griffith are here on behalf of the state. This is the date and time set for sentencing. Are both parties prepared to go forward?
We are.
All right, just a couple housekeeping matters. State, the victim's mother sent a very long, detailed list of money she's out of, but I don't have any documentation.
I did
to
not
support.
receive that either.
Okay, so I'm going to award the $5,000 of restitution to victims of crime, but that'll be the only restitution because there was actually proof of that.
Understood.
Any objection from the defense to that?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, and we did have a discussion about credit, and we have the credit at 780 days. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. State, you also noticed victim speakers. How many speakers do you have?
2.
And pursuant to statute, would you like them to speak last?
Please.
All right. State, since this is the result of a jury trial, you have retained the right to argue.
Yes, Judge, and you've been doing this as long as I have, if not longer. There's a couple of different types of defendants that come before you and that I've dealt with in my career. And there are those that don't function in society. They commit multiple crimes over and over. And then there are those like this defendant who functioned relatively normally for an extended period of time, but committed such an extreme act of evil when she did commit a crime that you have to put her on the far end of the spectrum of evil, Judge. I understand that her lack of criminal history is something that you're going to take into consideration when you determine whether she gets life without her or not. I really just have a question for the court, and I'm not going to try to provide an answer. And the question is this, is a person who is capable of such extreme evil, is that person someone that we want to walk our streets, whether it's 20 years from now, 28 years from now, or not? And you're in the robe, you're on the bench, you get to make that decision today. I would just urge you to think about what it must have taken for her to do what she did. Not everyone is capable of that extreme amount of violence. Not everyone, not even some of our worst offenders go that far. There was some statements made at our last sentencing that I would ask you to take into context with the evidence you heard at the trial. There is absolutely overwhelming evidence of her guilt, and obviously we have a jury verdict at this point. So all that nonsense that was spewed at the last hearing, I think that has been disproven during the course of the trial, and as evidenced by the very quick verdict that was delivered in this case. If you'll recall, it was just a couple of hours on the same day of closing arguments. With that said, Judge, I will submit it to your discretion, just defer to the victim speakers.
Okay. Ms. Michaels, what, if anything, would you like to say before I pronounce sentence against you?
At this point, I just feel that everything I say, it won't. The family's looking for certain things, and I cannot deliver what the family's hoping for. And they're here, and I just want them to get their, at least part of their anger out. I know no matter what I say, they're still going to feel the same way. So just let them have their time, and that's all I can say.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I like to state I'm going to be somewhat brief. This was the result of a 2-week jury trial. I do appreciate Ms. Michaels' statements and even the lack of her statements. This case has had a bit of a wild ride to get where we are before Your Honor today. The jury, and we all spoke to the jury afterwards, looked at basically one thing, and that was her statements to the police on August 15th. And she has made several statements leading up to this point, and today she's chosen to just basically let the record speak for itself, and then the history of this case speak for itself. Your Honor is in a very unique position, being basically a murder trial judge. The thing that I would like the court to take into consideration is the issue of proportionality. You hear on a regular basis cases that involve years, if not decades, of criminal conduct. People that have substantial criminal histories. People that have committed crimes over and over and over again. Ms. Michaels has a gross misdemeanor conviction that was close in time to this case, relatively speaking. She, outside of the events that gave rise to this case, she's lived a very good life. And I think the court should take that into consideration in reference to this issue of proportionality and treating similar defendants similarly and different defendants differently. I mean, when we look at the object or the goals behind sentencing, we have deterrence, we have incapacitation, we have rehabilitation, and then we get to this issue of retribution. And the flip side of retribution is redemption. You have a woman that stands before you today who's 47 years old. She turns 48 in April. You've got a woman that was a devoted mother. She had a career. Obviously, what occurred is not going to bring Mr. Willette back. Ms. Michaels' case, if we take the version of events that the state presented, we have here, you talk about stabbings and crimes of passion and things like that. In this case, we don't have someone that's been charged with lying in wait, planning. We don't have a case where we have a life insurance policy that was viewed. We don't have this, and when we talk about evil, I mean, that's kind of a slippery word sometimes. But at worst, what we have here is a conviction based on impulse and then perhaps bad actions that occurred following that. I mean, Your Honor spoke with the jury. We heard the testimony. We had this, and she was charged murder with use. And if we take the evidence in the light the most favorable to the state, we have something where there have been unwanted sexual advances. There was a candlestick or perhaps a poker that was then used to strike Mr. Willette. And I'm using his name. I mean, the decedent, I don't want to minimize. He was a person, obviously, as is Ms. Michaels. We have, again, we have an appeal that's going to follow, but nonetheless, if we take the version of events that the state would have the court take into consideration, we have an act that was based on impulsiveness and then bad, impulsive decisions that very well may have followed. Your Honor, and one case comes to mind, I believe it was the Randolph Thomas case. We have a case where there's multiple former spouses, multiple acts. In this case, we have a single act. We don't have this course of conduct that encompassed days, years, or in that case, decades. We have a single act that's now before Your Honor. The very minimum sentence per statute that Ms. Michaels could receive is a 21-year sentence. And we're talking 60 years old. And Your Honor knows the studies. I mean, like I said, you're in a very unique position based upon your experience and the depth, not only off the bench prior to your having assumed the bench, but as a murder trial judge. This is a case where the court should look at redemption. She can contribute to the community. She's had no issues whatsoever while incarcerated. In the beginning of this hearing, Your Honor addressed the credit for time served she's been in for some time. I would urge the court to view, to look at the facts and circumstances and the very difficult decision Your Honor has to make with the idea of redemption in mind. I would urge the court to give her, as far as the murder charge, the chance at redemption, the chance to be perhaps one day reincorporated into society. I would urge the court to give her a sentence of 20 with the possibility of parole, and then the minimum sentence for the with use in enhancement. I would submit that this idea of proportionality and true equity and fairness would be served by such a sentence, and that's what we request, and on that I submit it, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. State your first
All right, so you heard the opening statements there, the state focusing in on the extreme violence of the crime, the defense focusing in on proportionality. She's not the worst defendant that I'm sure this judge has seen, at least according to the defense. All right, we'll take a break. Coming up, the victim's stepmother addresses the court and gives an emotional victim impact statement. More of the sentencing hearing for Devyn Michaels coming up next here on Court TV. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. Now back to Nevada, where a former porn star, Devyn Michaels, is in court to learn her sentence for murdering the father of her children. Michaels had previously pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in a deal that would have made her eligible for parole in 15 years. But just as she was about to be sentenced, Michaels claimed that she was innocent and withdrew her guilty plea. Well, she took her case to trial where she was found guilty of first-degree murder. She now faces up to life in prison, and the defense is asking for 20 years. I believe the minimum is 20 or 21 years around there, so she lost in that deal for sure. All right, let's take you back inside that courtroom now. The victim's stepmother is giving her impact statement.
We do solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please state your full name, spelling your first and last name for the record.
Devyn Willette, Valeria, Willette.
And ma'am, what would you like to say to me today?
First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak out. It's been a while, and I'm very thankful. And whatever I'm going to read is what I lived for almost 3 years.
Okay.
Excuse me. The brutal murder that took place on August 7th, 2023 has forever changed my life, my husband's, and my children's life. I am still in shock and traumatized because of this unbelievable act from someone who is selfish and heartless. About a week after Johnathan's murder, we came across a huge responsibility of taking in 2 young girls who we didn't know, and due to the circumstances, we couldn't say no when all others say they couldn't. My life has changed since the notification of my stepson's death. With us taking in 2 girls with us taking 2 girls in our home and getting to know them and not knowing of all the trauma they previously had, after the murder, even more trauma was added. It has been a tough 2.5 years for all my family. Grieving has been hard at home, since there were times when I needed to break down and cry, but I couldn't because we had 2 girls who depended on our strength. Along came caseworkers, CASA, Boys Towns, and CAP attorneys who visit our homes several times a month. This doesn't include the process of getting fingerprinted, classes to be able to assist the girls while with us, and therapy for them and myself, husband on weekly basis. The girls did not have discipline, boundaries, basic cleanliness, social skills, and proper hygiene. The clothing they brought from Child Haven was unfit for anything except playtime. I contacted their stepfather/brother, Javier, to see if we could pick up more clothing, and those were not much better. We ended up spending a lot so they could look presentable when in school and out in the community with us. We also have to deal with Casey, our daughter, who was in senior year and fell into depression, making it hard for her to be in school and caused a lot of absences. It was a huge change in her life having to deal with 2 young girls with so much trauma and issues. Our family has pushed through, and Casey graduated in June of 2024. It has been very hard on us since no other relative has assisted us in caring for the girls. Only my immediate family members, which are my adult children. We have now built a relationship with Aunt Kayla, the killer's sister. She stopped by while she was in Las Vegas on business, and we had a great conversation, and she departed as a supportive aunt. Because of this meeting, the girls have changed their minds of what kind of person she is. We will continue to nurture this relationship with Aunt Kayla and the girls. Through Johnathan, we have gained a true friend who has supported us, especially me. We grieve together, and Bernadette has also lost a best friend. We talk, cry, and express our sorrows about how a person was taken away so brutally. We cannot bring Johnathan back. God has gained an angel in heaven. We believe he is watching over us and the girls. I ask today for justice for our family, especially the girls, because we have been sentenced for life with this tragedy. This will follow them for the rest of their life. We've created a time capsule for them in therapy where they can place notes or items that they can open in the future to remember their journey. We will never again hear his voice, his laughter, or see his expression. Johnathan doesn't have a second chance. His life has been taken, never to return to us. The girls have been left without a dad, stepfather-brother who doesn't make contact with them, and a mother who's in jail. After my marriage of 14 years, I have come to know Johnathan. Although we didn't have a close relationship with him, I miss his jokes, laughter, and him being funny. He would come around on holidays and enjoy our time spent with him. Thank you for allowing me to speak about the situation, and I am seeking the hardest penalty in this case. The killer that ended Johnathan's life needs to be put away forever. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, and thank you for being here.
All right, let's bring back in our guest, still with us, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Marie Pereira. Marie, it's an interesting victim impact statement, clearly emotional. She got to the victim in this case towards the end. She obviously said she didn't have the closest relationship with him. She knew him for about 14 years or so as a stepmother, but really talked about those girls, and I think really wanted to get this court to know how traumatized they have been. This sort of web of relationships that we have when someone dies, the victims are not just the victim, but all those people connected to that victim.
It was definitely an impact statement designed to make the judge understand the permanency of the pain the actions of the defendant cause on the entire family. I would have done it a little different. I think she focused too much on not the girls' trauma, but how the girls came to her. And she sounded salty to me.
Angry,
it's like angry, like they disrupted her home, that she had to take them in. And they came with all of these slutty-looking clothes that were inappropriate because their mom didn't raise them. They had no social skills. She could have left that all out. I get it, that she wants to show, even when she had the girls, Devyn didn't raise them right. But she didn't have to, put it out there like that. The way she said it, it's your delivery. But overall, she's bringing it home. She needs to spend the rest of her life in jail, in prison, because what she did has a lasting lifetime impact. But she did not have to make it seem like the girls were a disturbance to her by being in her home.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think she wanted to make sure that the judge understood that, the crime itself is one thing, leaving these children without a father, another thing. But she also committed some crimes beforehand by raising these kids so poorly. I think she wanted to make that point. Now, Devyn also spoke. The judge gave her an opportunity before the victim impact statements began. She said something to the effect that she didn't want to say anything because she felt that no matter what she said, that the family would still feel the same way. I get it. What do you make of that?
I think she's right, because nothing can take it back. And I believe in Devyn's mind, she's still an innocent woman who was wrongly convicted. And I'm sure there's an appeal. So it's hard to say sorry to the family and admit, because that's what the family wants. I did that. I cut off his head. I was wrong for that. It's never happening because, one, there's an appeal, and two, she said she didn't do it. That's why she didn't take the plea in the first place that would have given her 15 years in prison. A lot happened in this case, and while I respect the jury's verdict, there's some stuff that I still don't understand about the facts of the case. Yeah. And I think they condemned her because she slept with the son when he was 19, and she was still sleeping with the dad, so there was sort of like an overlap between the sleeping, and they condemned her for that.
Yeah. There was a lot there to condemn. I mean, let's be clear. I mean, this woman was leaving, so, you know, the defense tried to paint her as this sort of person who wasn't that bad, but there was a lot in her life that I think there were some poor decisions made. Let's just leave it at that. All right, Marie, we're going to take a break here, folks. Coming up, more of the sentencing hearing for Devyn Michaels, and we're going to hear from the stepfather, the father, I believe, coming up next. So keep it here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
I'm going to ask you a lot of intensely personal questions.
From the crime scene to the courtroom, this is Victim to Verdict.
Everyone has this heightened sense of anticipation.
What a day here at Court TV.
Fireworks both inside and outside the courthouse.
Let the cameras roll.
All right, I want to take you back now to Nevada, where former porn star Devyn Michaels is in court for sentencing. Now, in November, a jury found her guilty of first-degree murder in the death of her former boyfriend and father of her 2 children, Johnathan Willette. Michaels was married to Willette's son from a prior relationship at the time of the murder. Yes, I said that. All right, let's go back into the courtroom now for the father of the victim delivering his victim impact statement.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your full name, spelling your first and last name for the record.
James Willette, James Willette.
And sir, what would you like to say to me today?
I have a prepared statement that I would like to have you listen to.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
May I have a seat?
Sure.
Your Honor, I must apologize as I'm uncertain of the appropriate name to use. Tracy Reed, Tracy Tavares, Tracy Baker, Devyn Michaels, Nikki Fairchild. But for clarity in this context, I will refer to her as the killer and murderer of my son, Johnathan. This horrendous murder crime has affected her 2 precious children, myself, my wife and my children in the household, my wife's mother, my wife's brother and sisters and their families, my ex-wife and her boyfriend, my remaining son, my grandson who married her, his mother and family, her parents along with her sister's family, and anyone who knows us or were friends with Johnathan. We have all been given a life sentence by a woman who doesn't respect life. She has removed from our lives my son, her daughter's father, her daughter's stepbrother, and all related individuals that were just mentioned. The enduring loss of opportunities to communicate with Johnathan, witness his achievements, and provide guidance is permanent. This absence is not limited to life without parole. It is not replaceable. Each day serves as a reminder of this lasting impact which will persist indefinitely. Regardless of the duration of her sentence, we continue to experience an ongoing sense of loss that will endure throughout our lifetimes. Our circumstances remain unchanged,
and correspondingly, there should be no alteration to hers. As we grapple with the magnitude of what has been lost, we find ourselves thrust into unfamiliar roles and responsibilities, forced to adapt and preserve in the face of relentless adversity. The routines we once knew have vanished, replaced by an ongoing quest to provide love, safety, and guidance for young lives so suddenly uprooted. Our whole household has become a place of both deep sorrow and determined resilience as we navigate the labyrinth of legal proceedings, therapy appointments, and daily challenges that arise from a tragedy of this scale. The weight of grief is compounded by the necessity to advocate fiercely for our grandchildren, ensuring their emotional and physical needs are met, even as we contend with our own sense of devastation. Despite the overwhelming nature of these circumstances, we are steadfast in our pursuit of healing and justice, propelled by a profound sense of duty to honor Johnathan's memory.
All right, we'll step aside here, folks. Take a break. Thanks to Marie Pereira for being with us. But have no fear, she's getting a short break. She'll join us in the next hour. And coming up next, though, we're going to hear more from the victim's father in the sentencing hearing for Devyn Michaels. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala, and it's a busy Thursday here at Court TV. In Texas, testimony is back underway for Adrian Gonzalez, the former Uvalde school district officer who allegedly failed to confront a school shooter. We're going to take you back there a little bit later today. And in Georgia, Susan Embert is standing trial for a third time on charges that she fatally shot her husband, although she claims he shot himself. We're going to bring you that trial later this hour. And in Washington State, it's day 3 of the trial against Kevin West, the fire chief accused of strangling his wife to death amid a contentious divorce battle. And in Nevada, Devyn Michaels is facing sentencing today after being convicted of killing and beheading her ex-boyfriend on the eve of him moving in with her and his son. Let's get you back inside that courtroom now, where the victim's father is continuing his victim impact statement.
Safeguard the well-being of those he cherished most. The tragic passing of my son, Johnathan, has had a profound impact on many individuals, including his 2 beloved children, his mother, our family, all relatives, the killer's parents and sister, as well as friends and acquaintances of him. We have all received an extreme life sentence, not a 15-year to life term. We have no parole. We just the knowledge and the heartbreak of his loss. The killer, who does not respect life, has taken away my son, her daughter's father, her daughter's stepbrother, who is also her husband, and all others mentioned. The opportunity to communicate with my son, appreciate his life, witness his achievements, and provide support through advice is permanently lost. Every day we are reminded of this irreversible consequence. Nothing will change in 15 years, 20 years, or even our lives. Regardless of any duration served by the killer, Johnathan will not be returned to us. His actions are permanently ceased, and his voice will remain silenced forever. We are enduring a lifelong impact until the end of our days. This situation remains unchanged for us and thus should remain equally unaltered for the killer. We are consistently reminded of the serious impact of the killer's action on her life. Each day, the killer's daughters wake up to the reality that their father is no longer part of their lives, preventing them from sharing any experiences or creating memories with him. They experience significant long-term effects due to growing up without parental support, relying on grandparents, relatives, and others for assistance during a limited period before achieving independence. We are optimistic that they will understand they are not responsible for these circumstances and their future choices will help them avoid entering this system. Despite this, they will carry the burden of their mother's actions, knowing she has effectively removed both parents from their lives. These events have left 2 young lives facing significant challenges in their futures following the loss of their father due to her mother's actions. The recent events have been particularly traumatic for our family, especially for the children. My wife and I have attended classes to assist in raising our granddaughters and addressing their trauma. We are supported by caseworkers, CAP attorney, CASA worker, Boys Town worker, therapists, special school classes, coaches, and the daily challenges resulting from the loss of both parents. This situation has impacted everyone involved. We have observed changes in attitudes of our relatives and friends due to this event. Both my wife and I have consulted a therapist for support, which has been beneficial, though the issue remains prominent in our lives every day. We have attended numerous court dates related to both the murder trial and the cases involving the child abuse and termination of parental rights. The significant time spent traveling, communicating with district attorneys, and enduring the anticipation of trial outcomes has severely impacted our mental health and well-being. Such experiences are immensely challenging, particularly when one child is tragically taken by murder, as Johnathan has. As a retiree, I anticipated enjoying my golden years, but now my wife and I find ourselves responsible for raising preteens once again. It is essential to emphasize that while we deeply care for the girls and are concerned about their future, proper medical care and dedicated personnel can help ensure they lead normal lives. We are making notable progress with Janaea, who is determined to improve her life and situation. Despite holding 3 licenses, foster kinship, relative foster home advanced foster care, and professional caregiver pre-service training, we continue to enhance our understanding of the trauma experienced by our granddaughters. These children have never experienced loving discipline nor had real interaction with others, as they were homeschooled rather than attending school. Consequently, there is a significant lack of etiquette in social environments and personal interactions with peers and friends. This is especially difficult for us in a family setting or gatherings on special occasions. Throughout this difficult and painful experience, our resilience has been tested beyond measure as we navigate the complexities of the judicial system and endeavor to provide a stable environment for our granddaughters amid relentless adversity. The emotional and practical burdens we bear have transformed our daily existence, challenging us to find strength in one another and in support systems available to us. Despite the constant reminders of the loss and the enduring pain etched in every aspect of our lives, we strive to foster hope for the future of our grandchildren, advocating for their safety, well-being, and justice in the wake of such irreparable harm. We have faced countless obstacles in our efforts to piece together a sense of normalcy, persistently navigating bureaucratic hurdles and emotional turmoil while striving to safeguard the children's well-being. Every aspect of our daily existence has been altered. Every future plan reshaped by consequences of a single unforgivable act. The weight of responsibility continues to rest heavily upon us as we advocate for justice and stability, not only for our own heart, but for most importantly, for Jonathan's children whose futures have been so deeply scarred. We are requesting, per Marcy's law, the Senate Joint Resolution SJR Section 1, letter G, to reasonably notice of all public proceedings, including delinquency proceedings, upon request at which the defendant and the prosecutor are entitled to be present, and all parole or other post-conviction release proceedings, and to be present for all of these proceedings. Section N, to be informed of all post-conviction proceedings, to participate and provide information to the parole authority, to be considered before the parole of the offender, and to be notified upon request of the parole or other release of the offender. Section P, to have all monetary payments, money, and property collected from any person who has been ordered to make restitution to be first applied to payment to pay the amounts ordered as a restitution of the victim. As we move forward, it remains imperative that the lifelong consequences endured by our family, and especially our grandchildren, who will endure this crime for many years, are gone, are met with unwavering commitment to accountability and truth. The emotional scars, the logistic obstacles, and the persistent sense of emptiness cannot be erased. But through steadfast support and continued vigilance, we hope to honor Johnathan's memory and instill a sense of security and justice for his daughters. We deeply care for our grandchildren and find it challenging to come to terms with the actions taken by their mother, both regarding our lives and more significantly those of her children. The impact of this trauma may have lasting life on them. For instance, there is uncertainty who will accompany them during important events such as walking them down the aisle, at their weddings, graduations, birthdays, etc. There are moments in life when one must pause to reflect on one's circumstances. We examine all the known facts and attempt to understand them. My spouse and I have attended the court hearings related to both the termination of parental rights and the criminal case. This planned and calculated murder, and remind it was planned and calculated, is not justified in any way or manner, and the killer needs to be incarcerated for the rest of her life. We respectfully request that the maximum penalty behind bars without parole be imposed for this heinous crime. We consider the act of killing and decapitating the father of the killer's children and husband to be egregious and extremely severe, and should be met with extremely severe punishment. We trust in the wisdom of the court to recognize the full impact of these actions on all parties involved, and to deliver a resolution that both acknowledges the depth of our loss and upholds the principles of justice upon which our faith now rests. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to share my perspective on this criminal murder. I now defer to your judgment on this murder case.
Thank you, sir, and thank you very much for being here today.
All right, so the victim's father asking for the maximum time in prison. And I can say this, despite the trauma experienced by the family and these young girls, the only ray of sunshine, I think, is the fact that there is family to take them in and take care of them and continue to raise them. You have to look at it that way with these types of cases. All right, we'll take that break. Coming up, the judge hands down the sentence for Devyn Michaels. You do not want to miss it. Keep it here on Court TV.
School shooting that broke hearts around the country and broke trust with law enforcement.
Now, the officer sworn to protect those students faces a jury.
The Uvalde School Massacre Trial. Live coverage today on Court TV. Tonight on Closing Arguments, a dentist and his wife murdered behind locked doors. Tonight, you'll hear from the dentist's brother-in-law.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
All right, folks, right now we are in Nevada, where convicted killer Devyn Michaels is being sentenced today for the death of her ex-boyfriend. The former porn star was found guilty of bludgeoning and decapitating Johnathan Willette the night before he was supposed to move back in with her and her new husband, Johnathan's son, Devyn Willette. Now, we just heard a victim impact statement from his father and stepmother as well. Well, right now it's time for the judge to hand down the sentence for Devyn Michaels. Let's go back into court.
Well, I think when Mr. Draskovich said it's been quite a roller coaster that got everybody here, I think that's part of the understatement as to how we got here. But I did preside over this trial for 2 weeks, and I was able to hear all the evidence that was presented by the state, as well as I was the judge when this case was originally negotiated in a settlement conference, and then Ms. Michaels wanted to withdraw that plea and proceed to trial. And the jury has ruled, and we all have to respect the decision of the jury. But I have to say, and I think Mr. Willette said it best, and as well as so did his wife, because one of the biggest concerns that I think we should all have as we deal with this is the fact that these children are going to be left without either one of their parents. And it's not any fault of theirs, it's not anything that they played a part in, but as well as everything that they had endured up to this point. And now, Ms. Michaels, based on your actions, they are going to be left without either one of their parents. Pursuant to the jury's verdict, you're going to be adjudicated guilty of first-degree murder with use of a deadly weapon. In addition to the $25 administrative assessment fee, your DNA was taken in 2022, so it's waived. The $3 DNA assessment fee, you're going to be ordered to pay $5,000 in restitution to victims of crime. You're going to be sentenced to 240 months to life in the Nevada Department of Corrections. There's going to be a consecutive 96 to 240 months in the Nevada Department of Corrections for the deadly weapon enhancement, and as of today, you have 780 days credit for time served.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Draskovich, your office will be allowed to withdraw at this point. Mr. Brown, we are going to appoint you as appellate counsel so that you can file the notice of appeal. Yes, you can put it. Thank you,
All right, so that brings this case to an end. Devyn Michaels will be spending 240 months, as you heard the judge say, which comes out to be about 20 years behind bars before she's eligible for parole. It is 240 months to life. Then the judge hit her with the most important part. She will serve another 8 years consecutive to that. So if at the end of those 20 months she is granted parole, she's got another 8 years to serve before she becomes eligible again on that secondary charge. And the judge pointing out the most important thing, the biggest concern for her were these children who are now left without a parent because of her actions, because of Devyn Michaels' actions. All right, let's bring in our guest. Joining us this hour, criminal defense attorney Laura Urezzi. And Laura, great to see you as always. Thank you so much for joining me on the program. Love to get your reaction to the judge here. Again, 240 months. She had a plea deal before she went to trial, then claimed she was innocent, so decided she had to go to trial. About a 5-year trial tax in this case. She had a 15-year plea deal, 15-year to life plea deal. Then she ends up with 20 to life after this sentencing. Your thoughts?
Look, the judge has to do what the judge has to do. I mean, the jury in this case convicted the defendant of a pretty brutal murder, and you know, the ex-boyfriend was actually decapitated and the head was never found. 2 children, their children, now are parentless, basically, because of that. And you know, it's fairly close to what the offer was. It's not that different, you know, except for the extra 5 years, and we've got also the consecutive 8 years for the enhancement. But I mean, it comes across as a fair sentence.
Yeah, I would have to agree. She'll be, at least for that, after that first 20 years, she's 47 now, will turn 48 in April, according to her attorney. So she'll be in her late 60s, going into her late 70s by the time she's actually free from the prison system. So it's ostensibly almost a life sentence for her. One of the interesting things, Laura, that came across to me is, while both of the victim impact statements talked about the father a little bit, really, this was about the children. And even the judge said it. She said her biggest concern here was these children being left without parents. And the victim impact statements talking about how difficult it is to deal with them. The situation has left them extremely traumatized. I think they even mentioned, at least the stepmother did, the way they were raised has left them with some shortcomings as well. What did you make of all that?
These are all factors and information that the court will take into consideration when deciding what punishment or what sentence to impose. And that's the reality. I mean, it's very rare to find a crime that's victimless, but in a case like this, where the father is murdered by the father and where both parents are now out of the picture, it is natural and human to bring up the most obvious issue here: two children who are now going to be raised by people other than their parents, the people who could have given them the most love and care, and the trauma. Nothing can erase that trauma. So it makes sense that everyone in the family focused more on the children, although it is kind of strange that they didn't focus at all. I hardly focused on the victim or the deceased in this case.
Yeah,
and maybe that says something about who he was.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And again, and I don't want to disparage the dead, but it did come across a little weird. All right, Laura, stand by. I do want to point one other thing out, folks. Someone conspicuous by their absence, Devyn. He also lost a father and lost a wife, but he wasn't at this at all. Didn't want anything to do with it.